Recently, I spent 2 years of my life entangled in the family court system. I wasn't getting a divorce. I wasn't seeking custody of anyone. I was simply a mandated reporter that dared to speak the truth. It all started in 2020 when I had a dance studio and offered to tutor any of my students that were having a problem with remote learning. And while I was tutoring one of my students, during this same time, she was going through a custody battle with her parents. Basically, her entire family had banded together and were trying to get her away from her abusive father. This went on for months, and she wasn't able to see the father due to the fact that she had a restraining order against him. I continued to just tutor her through the pandemic, and she became very close with my family, especially my little girl, who had danced with her at my studio for years. We were all very close, and during the time that I was tutoring her, she shared with me the intimate details of her abuse. So after several months went by, and the girl was sure she would never have to see her father again, he got new custody papers, a court order, we don't know how, and he shows up with 5 policemen to take her out of my van and put her in the psych ward at the hospital. We had no idea why she was going there because she was perfectly sane and had healed from her trauma and was doing a great job with her schooling, but that's what happened. The next thing you know, everyone who had known about her abuse got a restraining order. Everyone that basically might have been able to share the truth with authorities got a restraining order. So her entire family, her grandparents, her grandma or grandpa, her aunts and uncles, myself, we all got restraining orders.
So does that mean nobody else she loved was able to see her ever again besides her father?
Correct. So we thought that this would be an easy fix, and we all got attorneys, and we thought, well, we'll just tell the truth and we'll all get out of this. It should be just a few $1,000s for each attorney, and we'll be able to go on with our life. But that's not what happened. There was a series of legal maneuvers that he and his attorney were used to using on people, women, senior citizens, handicapped people, anybody he wanted to control. He had a long history, and it's documented in court documents, of vexatious litigation, which is basically bullying someone through the use of the court system. And so that's what he did. He created a situation for us where we had to sign an agreement, basically. And all the attorneys were in on it. We told them we had done nothing wrong, and we showed up for what we thought was a meeting, and we were not allowed to see the judge because it was a hearing, and we had told them we didn't want to sign any agreement. We wanted to talk to the judge. They wouldn't let us in the courtroom. All 5 attorneys badgered us for hours and told us if we didn't sign this agreement with this sociopath that things were going to go bad for us, and we could get a long-term restraining order, and that I would lose my teaching license. That's what I was concerned about. But we kept saying we did nothing wrong. We don't want to sign an agreement. We already told you that. But it kept going on for hours. we told them if we sign any kind of a civil agreement with this man, he will use it to control our lives. Well, it didn't work, and at the end of the day, there were a series of things that happened that were, we now know, illegal, and we were forced to submit to their divorce case and to a civil agreement that allowed him to control us, and that's exactly what he did. And he used this agreement to defame us, to keep us from going to any public places, to keep us from going to our own school district. I had to move my daughter to a new school. I couldn't teach at certain schools. He misrepresented the agreement. He marketed it as a full-on criminal restraining order, and indicated to anyone that he talked to about it that we were all kidnappers and that we had abused his daughter and brainwashed her into thinking that she was abused by her father. And this worked for him, and it went on for months and months and months. And we were basically caught in the family court system, and we had done nothing wrong. So I called the state's attorney, I called the Supreme Court, I called all of these different places, and no one could help me. Even the Illinois state legislatures told me I just needed to get a different attorney, and I needed to spend more money, and I needed to just sue him. And so I had already spent all of my money trying to defend myself against false allegations, and it wasn't working. So I had to start doing research, and I extensively researched all of these areas of the court system. I researched all of the areas of psychology. I researched narcissism and how to meet a narcissist in court, and all kinds of things. I researched PTSD because I myself was suffering from PTSD, because this man would stalk all of us. He would stalk us in person. He would stalk us on the internet. He would create fake profiles and try and threaten us. He basically wanted all of us to do something that would be infringing upon the civil agreement, so that he could then file a lawsuit, which he did frequently, and against all of us. And so basically I had to go into hiding and not go anywhere. If I was invited to a party, to a public event, to a school event, I had to decline because he would claim that I was there to stalk his daughter. Things got so bad that he started physically coming after myself and my little girl in public venues when we go to the ballet or something of that nature. So finally, I got him on videotape attacking us. He was arrested for disorderly conduct, but he got out of it. And he continued to taunt us. So I had to find an attorney that could get me out of this. And I knew I would have to spend my entire life savings to do it. So I went on a journey to find just the right attorney. I had to find someone, I had to find a woman who was willing to take on his attorney. I had to find a woman that was willing to fight for women's rights. and it had to be just the right person. But the problem was, when I was interviewing attorneys, he had used almost all of the well-known attorneys in our area over the years because of vexatious litigation against women. And so that made it a conflict of interest, and I was not able to retain an excellent attorney, it seemed, until I found the attorney that I ended up with, and she listened to my story, and she thought I was crazy, and because it was a crazy story, and it was unbelievable. So I basically had to show her a book that I wrote as I was going through it. And my first book was basically me keeping a diary while I'm going through the darkness. And why did I have to do that? I had to do that because I was in such a dark place that I became suicidal. And I needed to write things down to be able to process them. And as I researched the PTSD that I was suffering with, I found out that it had a name. It's called litigation abuse syndrome. And litigation abuse syndrome is a severe form of PTSD that happens when women are subjected to months and years of being bullied by their abusers through the use of the court system. This is a thing, and it's also documented in the psychology manual, the diagnostic manual that psychologists use. They recognize litigation abuse syndrome, and I realized that that's what I was suffering with. I didn't have a history of mental illness, but I could not get out of this dark place. So I had a lot of people praying for me, and I prayed, and I asked the Lord to give me a way that if he could get me out of this situation, that I could help others. So I went through like a year with my new attorney, who read my book and looked at all the evidence that backs up my book, and she devised a plan that she would be able to expose him to the court system in a way that would at least be able to deter him from further abusing me. So we embarked on a series of several hearings, trials, and it's all documented in my second book, which is how this book is how God got me out of the situation. And it was me researching and being guided by the Holy Spirit that allowed me to find my way out of this crazy maze. But then once I found out, how much damage this had done to my family, and how we had to lose everything, my business, my entire life savings, just to buy my freedom back, I realized that this happens to people that are in family court every day, every single day. And people started reaching out to me and telling me their stories, and it just broke my heart. The happiest day of my life was when I was able to go in the court system and get these court documents that said that everything that they did to me was illegal and void. And I got it stamped by the court reporter, and I got the judge's signatures on here, and I had to carry these around with me and go to all the places that he defamed me and prove to them that what he was selling to them was bogus. I had to try to take my power back and my life back, and I couldn't have done that without my attorney and my Lord and Savior and the support of my family that helped me through this. And so now that I realized that this was a nationwide epidemic that people in family court, women and children in family court are victimized on a daily basis. I have made it my mission to help people. Jacqueline Franchetti is at the forefront of this fight, and she is in New York. And Jacqueline's story is like everybody else's story. She was in a custody battle, and she dared to tell the truth. When she told the truth, she was accused of parent alienation. And she was made to be the bad guy. And her child, who was a toddler at the time, was forced to visit the abuser. Abusers don't just abuse women, they abuse the children too. They don't have boundaries. Sociopaths do not have boundaries. And she was forced to place her child in harm's way, and the father murdered the child. Ever since then, Jacqueline Franchetti has been fighting for court reform in New York City. She's gotten really far and very close to making a new law that will require judges, lawyers, and guardian ad litems to get extensive psychological training if they are going to make decisions as to the best interest of a child. Currently, they do not know the difference between a protective parent and an abusive parent. And they shouldn't, because they're lawyers. They're not psychologists. And so I want to join Jacqueline Franchetti and the many other people all over the nation who are suffering because of court-endorsed abuse. And I want to make a difference, and I'm going to get a law made. That's going to be hard to do, but we're going to do it. And we're going to use our voices to do it. In fact, we have a Facebook page called V.O.I.C.E.S. Stands for Victims of Injustice in the Court Empowered to Speak. You can go to that. There's a link here. You can go to that page and you can tell me your story. And one by one, we're going to tell our stories. And I want you to use this as your hashtag. I want you to do hashtag #SheToo. And I want you to post your story. Maybe it's just a little bit of your story. Maybe it's a lot. Maybe you're afraid to tell your story. That's okay. You can message us. You can private message us on our Facebook page. There's also an email on V.O.I.C.E.S that you can tell me your story. People have already reached out to me. And we're going to share your story on our YouTube channel. And I've already shared part of my story there. And over the next few weeks, my sweet daughter is going to be posting videos, snippets of my story. But to really get a good idea of what I went through and the impact it had on me, and just the viciousness that I had to endure, not because of the sociopath, because it's not his fault that he's mentally ill, but because of the court system. The court system did not have a safety net for me. And they empowered him, and that's what they do. So all I can say is get the books. If you have to have the first book to understand the second book. So these are both on Amazon, and there's links attached to the Facebook post here, and you can get the books. I'm not trying to sell books. I literally only make $1 off of each book. I'm trying to get the word out, raise awareness, and get people on board and get a V.O.I.C.E.S chapter in every state so that somebody will listen to us and will do something about this human trafficking. This is what it is. Because you want to know why that person came after me, why he was able to, because of an exchange of money between several parties. That's why. It's all about money. And I had to spend my entire life savings to buy back my freedom. This is America, and this shouldn't happen. Please go to our Voices page where you can get help and share your story right now. And I want to leave you with this. When I was praying to God about how I might help people, I didn't hear an answer for a long time because I knew He wouldn't let me go through this horrible situation without using it for His glory. One day I went to see the movie, The Sound of Freedom. And I'm so thankful for Jim Caviezel and all of the people that were involved in making that. But at the end of the movie, there was a quote that Jim Caviezel said in his talk that comes after the movie's over. He said, "The most powerful person in the world is the storyteller." And that's when it hit me. I have to tell my story. You have to tell your story. And our voice will make a difference. Thank you for listening.